Impact Interview is sponsored by the Pocono Mountains, where small town charm meets big adventures. Book your trip today by visiting PoconoMountains.com.
Welcome back to Nittany Game Week. For the first time ever, we're talking Penn State and the Frozen Four. And if you're going to talk about the Frozen Four, the guy to talk to is ESPN's John Buccigross, who's going to call all of the action from St. Louis. John, thanks so much for joining us. Really appreciate the time.
Hey, great to be with you.
Look, we're going to talk about Penn State. I'm going to ask you about them in detail in just a minute. But first, the general event, the Frozen Four, what makes this sporting event so special and unique?
Yeah, it's my 12th. I've been at ESPN 28 years. Before I was there, I worked in Providence, Rhode Island. Weekday reporter, weekend anchor, and cover the local scene. And while I was there, the 1995 Frozen Four was there. I grew up around Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, Indiana, PA, Steubenville, and I was an NHL fan. Obviously, my dad was. I'd go to Pittsburgh for games once in a while, but I'd never come across the Frozen Four in 1995. So obviously, local sports reporter went and covered, and I just couldn't believe it. All the bands and people walking around outside the arena in sweaters from teams who weren't even there. It's like an annual pilgrimage. They go no matter what. Great if their team is there, but not always. And so that's when I first caught the bug. This is a whole different flavor of hockey. And then luckily got to start to do the play-by-play in 2013. This is my 12th. And so it's just the favorite thing I do. It's just like a carnival atmosphere. It's really, again, like I said, a unique flavor of hockey.
Well, and blue and white fans are going to come. They're going to enjoy it, and they bring their own special flavor to it as well. And they're going to be really excited about it. Had no idea that this was even possible when you look back at Penn State's season, right? I mean, 9 games in the first 9 games in the Big Ten, no wins. How improbable is this? Almost impossible, really. And then how dangerous does it make them this time of year when you come from basically dead in the water to now you're in the Frozen Four playing with house money?
Yeah, it really is. That's actually a picture of the Miracle on Ice team behind me from 1980. It's kind of a miracle on ice. It really is. And to come from where they did, like you said, and obviously those teams are dangerous when they peak late. They have momentum, they have swagger, they have confidence. We see it in a lot of sports where teams have a huge kick late in the season. And so now they feel a little bit bulletproof, And yeah, they're a dangerous team to face. It'll be certainly a tough matchup for Boston University. They'll probably remind them of, obviously, it was a close game against UConn. And so Penn State kind of has a UConn flavor to them. So I think, that's what BU has to think about when they prepare for this game. Boston University has multiple future NHL players on the roster, many more than Penn State. So from a talent perspective, they have the edge. But again, in college hockey, it's about cohesiveness and believing and playing good defense. And that's what Penn State will need to do.
Well, and a hot goalie can take you really far as well. And Sergeyev has been fantastic. Look, my last name is Sadowski, so I'm partial to Coach Gudowski. Of course I would be. But what makes him the right guy for the job in Hockey Valley, right from the get-go all the way to now?
Yeah, to take over basically a club program, turn it into a Big Ten team. And I was there from the beginning. ESPN had a Big Ten contract for a while, and we would do 3 or 4 regular season games a year. And I was going to Penn State a lot in the early going, and I just couldn't believe the arena, the roar zone, how quickly they became one of the best student sections in the country, better than a lot of blue blood student sections, even to this day. So it's just amazing how quickly the vibe happened. Positive vibes everywhere, and he's just a Western Canadian likable guy. He reminds me of Barry Melrose. These people they're a lot like Central Pennsylvania. They're just so friendly and kind with big hearts, and there's not a surprise that he fits at Penn State like he does. The characteristics of Western Canadians and Western and Central and Eastern Pennsylvanians is very similar.
I love that comp. Barry Melrose. That's a great comp. I have to bring him up to him when I talk to him. But look,
Yes.
You mentioned BU. You touched on BU. And look, we're talking about an upstart versus one of the most tradition-laden programs out there, right? Been playing hockey for over 100 years. They're 25th Frozen Four, 5 national championships. Just gives you that even better dynamic to the story. You're always looking for great stories as a reporter or as a play-by-play announcer. This matchup as a semifinal is one of the best that you can have out there.
Yeah, red, white, and blue. It's going to be a great uniform game. And yeah, this would be the biggest win in program history, obviously. The Hockey East has tons of success. BU has 5 national championships. The Big Ten hasn't had a national championship yet since it's been formed. Imagine if Penn State's the first. You're talking Michigan, Michigan State, Wisconsin, and Nittany Lions out of nowhere. That would be another miracle on ice. So it's a great story. It could really culminate to be the first Big Ten team. Only one can be the first to win the Big Ten, a national championship from a Big Ten school. So that'd be pretty cool if it was Penn State. But yeah, it's going to take a lot. Barry always says, your best players have to be your best players. Barry's a Saskatchewan guy. Guy's a Alberta guy, but both Western Canadian, very similar. So I'm sure Guy would say the same thing, that the best players, like you said, the goalie especially, because they'll likely get outshot, have to be your best players, and that's what it comes down to.
Love the passion John Buccigross has for college hockey. The Frozen Four is going to be a lot of fun for PSU. Make sure you go to NittanyGameWeek.com for all of our Impact interviews, along with other web-exclusive content like our depth chart.